You've been meeting them your whole life. You just didn't know what to call it. That presence in your dreams that watches but never speaks. That voice that answers questions before you finish asking. That pull towards something ancient, familiar, but not of this world. That's not fantasy, that's contact. And it's been happening in the only space that can hold it, the dream realm. Not the shallow dreams stirred by late-night anxieties, but the deep ones. The ones that feel like places, not stories. The ones you wake up from with your heart pounding, your palms sweating, your soul whispering. That wasn't just a dream, because it wasn't. You didn't imagine it, you remembered it. Your higher self doesn't exist in language or image. It exists in symbol, vibration, archetype, and that's the native tongue of dreams. While your waking mind clings to logic, your sleeping mind opens to transmission. And every night, if you're willing, the veil thins just enough for the meeting to happen. Not because you've earned it, but because you've finally stopped blocking it. You've started to soften the noise, started to feel the invitation. Because the dream world isn't random. It's structured like a school, and your higher self is the one leaving the breadcrumbs, clues, codes, echoes. And if you're brave enough to listen without needing control, if you stop trying to decode with the same mind that created your confusion, you'll begin to notice the pattern, the dreams that repeat, the symbols that return, the impossible things you somehow know. That's how it begins, not with a blinding revelation, but with a soft remembering, one that says, "You've been here before, and you'll return again." In the dream realm, words are clumsy, thought is too slow. Your higher self doesn't communicate like a teacher handing you instructions. It moves like a current, pulls like gravity, speaks in visions that bypass your intellect and go straight into your cellular memory. And when it shows up, you don't question if it's real, you question how you ever forgot. Maybe it comes as a figure made of light. Maybe it wears your face, older or younger than you are now. Maybe it doesn't look like anything at all, but feels like truth. There's no ceremony, no grand reveal. Just a sudden quiet in the dream where everything else fades, and you're left with a presence so still, it rearranges you. That's how it begins, not with fireworks, but with recognition. A kind of soul-level déjà vu. And once you've met it, you start to notice that the world looks different when you wake up. Not brighter, not prettier, just realer. The noise doesn't grip you as tightly. The urgency to prove, chase, explain it, starts to dissolve. Because part of you touched something infinite while your body slept, and it left a mark. You carry it with you the next day, even if you can't describe it. That's how the integration works. It's not about remembering the exact dream, it's about feeling what it activated. But here's where it gets even stranger. The more often you connect, the more those encounters evolve. They stop being just glimpses and start becoming guidance. You ask for clarity before bed and wake up with a knowing. You face a decision and feel peace about the answer you never logically chose. Your higher self doesn't give you a roadmap. It tunes your compass. It strengthens your ability to feel what's aligned and what's false without needing validation. And over time, that feeling becomes louder than your fear. That's the real power of meeting your higher self through dreams. Not escape, not fantasy, but embodiment. A remembering so deep that you begin to walk differently in the world you once tried to sleep through. But don't mistake this for a one-time event. Meeting your higher self in the dream realm isn't a climax, it's a conversation. Ongoing, shifting, designed to evolve as you evolve. The more willing you are to surrender control, the more detailed the messages become. Symbols begin to rearrange. You notice animals, colors, patterns that show up again and again, not just in dreams but in waking life, like echoes crossing through dimensions. Numbers repeat. Faces visit more than once. You start to see meaning where others see coincidence. That's not madness, that's resonance. And each time you trust the pattern, you tune your frequency closer to the source of it. That's when the boundary between dream and waking begins to blur. You begin to access dream insight in the middle of the day. A word someone says triggers a flash of a scene from a dream you forgot you had. An ordinary moment collapses into a deeper memory that was never yours in this lifetime but always belonged to you. These aren't hallucinations, they're harmonics. Your higher self is calibrating you not just to receive information, but to remember who you are beyond it. And if you're still here, still feeling this in your bones more than your brain, it's not because I'm telling you something new. It's because I'm confirming something you've always known. You're not crazy. You're not lost. You're waking up inside the dream. So if you want to keep tuning into this frequency, if this kind of remembering feels more like coming home than watching a video, subscribe now and hit the bell. Not for content, for contact. Because your higher self isn't waiting on the other side of a screen. It's waiting on the other side of your willingness to believe what you've always felt was real. The truth is, the dream realm responds to your intention more than your intellect. It doesn't care how much you know, it listens to what you feel. So if you want to deepen the connection with your higher self, you don't need rituals, you need readiness. And readiness looks like softening the noise before you sleep. Not just putting your phone down, but putting your defenses down. Not just closing your eyes, but opening your inner ones. Before bed, ask not with desperation, but with openness. Show me what I'm ready to receive. That one sentence is enough, because the dream realm isn't impressed by force, it moves with surrender. The more you show up without agenda, the more clearly you'll be guided. And guidance doesn't always look like answers. Sometimes it's a feeling you wake up with, a memory that isn't yours but lives in your bones, a truth you can't explain but suddenly can't live without. That's contact, that's communion, and it's not limited to sleep. The body remembers what the mind forgets. So begin listening to your sensations, what makes your breath deepen, what makes your chest tighten, what sparks chills down your spine. Those aren't reactions, they're transmissions. When you feel them, pause, breathe. That's your higher self signaling alignment. You're not alone, you're being met. But you have to slow down enough to recognize the moment when the veil lifts. You have to be willing to let silence speak louder than the stories. That's how the dream continues during the day. That's how your waking life becomes another layer of the same message, written not in language, but in synchronicity. A book that falls off the shelf. A stranger who says the exact phrase you needed. A song that feels like it's singing you. None of it is random. It's all choreography from the self who's already walked ahead of you, already seen what you're afraid to want, and is now guiding you back through symbols that only you can decode. Eventually, the dreams stop being just stories and start becoming instructions. They unfold like rituals, not entertainment. You're no longer watching passively, you're participating. One night, you're walking through a hallway that loops endlessly, and in waking life, you realize you've been repeating the same emotional cycle in your relationships. Another night, your younger self hands you an object you can't name, and the next morning, an old fear suddenly loses its grip. These aren't metaphors, they're mechanics. Your higher self is handing you tools disguised as imagery, activation codes dressed up as symbols, truths so deep your conscious mind would reject them if they came any other way. But in the dream, you accept them because you remember them. You don't question if they make sense, you feel that they do. And that's when the real shift happens. When you stop analyzing your dreams like puzzles and start using them like maps. You write them down not to decode them, but to work with them. You notice how dream themes sync up with real-world events. You start setting intentions before bed and waking up with messages that confirm the next step. Your life becomes a collaboration not with fate, not with luck, but with the version of you who never forgot why you came here. The version who speaks in myth, in movement, in subtle shivers down your spine. And what's even wilder is that the more you listen, the more detailed the messages become. Dreams go from vague impressions to crystal clear downloads. You start having entire conversations with entities made of light, walking through dimensions that feel more real than waking life. You wake up not tired but charged, like something ancient inside you is being updated night by night. That's not fiction, that's contact. And the more you honor it, the more you realize that every night is an invitation not just to rest, but to return, to the place where remembering and becoming are the same thing. At a certain point, it stops feeling like you're visiting the dream realm and starts feeling like you're waking up inside it. The line between here and there dissolves. You begin noticing that decisions flow with less resistance, that clarity lands without overthinking, that what used to feel like effort now feels like direction. That's what happens when the higher self isn't just something you meet, it's something you merge with. Integration isn't dramatic, it's subtle, steady, cellular. It's the moment you stop asking, "What's my purpose?" and start living in a way that makes the question irrelevant. Because your actions begin to align with something so deep, so accurate, that second-guessing loses its grip. Your body moves before your mind can argue. Your voice speaks truths you didn't rehearse. That's not impulsivity, that's embodiment. The wisdom you used to chase is now rooted in your nervous system. You're no longer trying to become someone else. You're remembering who you already are, underneath the forgetting. And your dreams? They evolve too. They become clearer, fewer distractions, more focus, less chaos, more connection. You find yourself re-entering the same dream landscape over and over, like returning to a classroom where each night you're taught a little more. You start waking with names, dates, messages you weren't supposed to know, but you do, and they lead you somewhere, to a conversation, a book, a breakthrough. Because your higher self isn't trying to impress you with magic, it's trying to empower you with memory. Memory of your blueprint, memory of your role in the larger unfolding. You stop asking for signs and start being one. You walk into rooms and shift the energy without trying. You speak, and people hear something beyond your words. That's not ego, that's alignment. That's the result of someone who no longer visits the dream realm as an outsider, but now walks between worlds as a bridge. 1 foot in the mystery, 1 foot in the mission, fully alive, fully awake, finally home. Once the integration begins, going back to your old self isn't just difficult, it's impossible. Not because you're trying to be better, but because what once felt tolerable now feels like betrayal. You start to notice how much of your life was built on compromise, how often you said yes when you meant no, how often you stayed quiet to avoid being misunderstood, how often you shrank to fit into rooms that never had space for your truth. But now your nervous system rebels against inauthenticity. You feel it instantly in your gut, in your throat, in your bones. Your body becomes the boundary. The dream realm didn't just give you insight, it gave you permission. Permission to want more, permission to stop performing, permission to show up in rooms not as a role but as a signal, and people notice. Some drift away because your frequency no longer matches their unspoken agreements. Others are drawn to you like gravity, not because you're loud, but because you're clear. And clarity is rare, clarity is magnetic. Your relationships change, small talk becomes exhausting. Surface connections can't hold your attention. You crave depth, presence, truth, and you're willing to wait for it. Because the version of you that's waking up inside dreams doesn't chase, it attracts. It aligns, it speaks less and creates more. It doesn't argue to be understood, it embodies what it knows. And your work? It transforms too. You're no longer trying to climb someone else's ladder. You're building your own blueprint. You're guided by something internal, ancient, precise. You create not for validation but for alignment. You don't need everyone to get it. You just need to honor the message, because that's what your higher self has always been, a message. Not just to you, but through you. You become a vessel, a mirror, a reminder to others of what they've forgotten. And you do it without trying. Because once you've tasted the truth in dreams, you can't serve illusions in daylight. The moment hits you quietly, not with fireworks, but with undeniable presence. You're brushing your teeth, sitting in traffic, pouring coffee, and suddenly it lands. That voice you heard in the dream, that energy you felt guiding you, that light behind the symbols, it was never separate from you. It was you, the higher self you've been chasing through dreamscapes, meditations. Whispers in the dark, it's not watching from above. It's been unfolding from within. Every time you listened to your gut, every time you said yes to the unknown, every time you trusted the pull instead of the path, you were meeting it, becoming it, aligning so completely that the separation collapsed. And now, there's no more performance, no more pretending. You don't have to wear the right spiritual mask, say the right enlightened words, or curate a version of awakening that fits someone else's comfort zone. You're just real, rooted, present. You cry when it hurts. You laugh without explanation. You create because it moves you. You no longer run from darkness, because you've seen what grows there. Your wisdom, your clarity, your power. And all of that came from a place no one else could see. From the dreams that visited you when the world went quiet, from the signals your waking mind couldn't decode but your soul understood, from the guidance that didn't need language to speak directly into your bones. That's what this was always about, not becoming someone new, but collapsing the illusion that you were ever anything less. Not climbing to the clouds, but descending into your full humanity with divinity intact. And now, you live like someone who remembers. Someone who walks slower, speaks truer, and doesn't apologize for the quiet knowing that burns inside their chest. That's not ego. That's remembrance. That's legacy. And the beautiful twist? The moment you fully meet your higher self is the same moment you realize it's been walking beside you since the beginning, just waiting for you to slow down long enough to recognize your own reflection in the dream. So now the question isn't whether your higher self exists. The question is, what will you do now that you've remembered it? Because the dream doesn't stop just because you're awake. The guidance doesn't disappear because the sun is up. This world, this version of reality, is just another layer of the dream. And now that you've seen behind the curtain, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to numbing, shrinking, second-guessing, pretending that mask you used to wear. It doesn't fit anymore, not because someone ripped it off, but because you finally outgrew it. And maybe that's the real purpose of all of this, not to chase enlightenment, but to outgrow the lie that you were ever disconnected. Your higher self isn't up there, floating in the clouds, unreachable and ethereal. It's right here in your instincts, in your silence, in the ache behind your eyes, when something deeply true lands inside you. It's the version of you that never forgot, that never judged you for falling asleep, that never stopped whispering until you finally listened. And now you walk with it. Every step, every breath, every decision shaped not by fear but by alignment. You don't need to rush. You don't need to prove. You just need to stay present enough to recognize when it speaks. Because it will. In a stranger's voice, in a child's laughter, in your own reflection. And when it does, you'll know. You'll feel that same deep current you felt in the dream realm pulling you home. And maybe, just maybe, the next step isn't to figure it all out, but to share what this remembering has awakened in you. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had a dream that felt like more than just a dream? A message you couldn't shake? A presence you still remember? Drop it in the comments. Because someone else out there is carrying the same memory, and your words might be the exact sign they've been waiting for. Maybe that's how your higher self speaks through you, not just in dreams, but in the truths you're finally brave enough to say out loud.